Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Yuni Kartika. I'm from PBI 1 2018. So here I will explain about my research proposal. The first is about the title of my research proposal, and the second is about research problem, and the third is about research objective, and the last about all components of research method. Okay, for the first is the title of my research proposal is the effectiveness of teaching reading through listen, read, discuss toward the student reading comprehension at the 8th grade of SMP Negeri 2 Banyuasin. Before that, I will explain the definition of listen, read, and discuss. Read is discover information by reading it in a written or printed source. Reading is an important element in learning English. And then listen is an act of listening to something. And discuss is talk about something with another person or group of people. And listen, read, discuss is a strategy of comprehension that constructs students' prior knowledge before they read a text. During reading and after reading, by listening, the teacher short lecture, reading a text selection, and discussion. This strategy may help students unite between the author words and their own, thus take effects in their comprehension to learning and remembering about what they read. The second is research problem. From my research proposal, there are three research problems. They are, first, how is the level of reading skill of student in grade 8 SMP Negeri 2 Banyuasin 3? And the second is, our English skill, listening, reading, writing, and speaking possessed by student in grade 8 SMP Negeri 2 Banyuasin 3. And the last is, why is teaching reading through listen, read, and discuss important for reading comprehension of student in grade 8 SMP Negeri 2 Banyuasin 3? And the third talk about research objective. Based on the research problem above, then often research objectives are, first, to know the level of reading skill of student in grade 8 SMP Negeri 2 Banyuasin 3. And the second is to find out the English skill, listening, reading, writing, and speaking of student in grade 8 SMP Negeri 2 Banyuasin 3. And the last is to understand the importance of teaching reading through listen, read, discuss toward reading comprehension of student in grade 8 SMP Negeri 2 Banyuasin 3. And the last is about all components of research method. There are 6 points. They are research design, operational definition, and then participant of the study, and then data collection, data analysis, and trustworthiness. Research design. This research uses a qualitative research. Qualitative research is research related to descriptive or using an analysis. According to Sugiono, 2005, he argues that qualitative research is a type of research that is suitable in discussing and understanding a phenomenon or condition and situation of the object of research. In conducting this research, there are 3 stages. The first is data collection through filling out a questionnaire which is carried online on the link provided and making observation. And the second is to identify all data received in order to obtain interpretation of findings. And the last is to discuss the explanation and interpretation of the result of the research carried. And the second is operational definition. In order to avoid misunderstanding in interpreting the information, the writer will give some keywords that really necessary to explain. They are listen. Listen is one of the abilities that every English learner must have, which is useful for making it easier for students to understand the meaning of in an audio, or from various other types of explanation that involve hearing. For example, when a teacher explains in English, the student listening ability will more quickly understand what the teacher explanation means. And the second, read. Read is a skill that almost all students can do. Read focuses on the pronunciation of what someone said. For example, a student reads a text and other students are asked to listen to what the student is reading. This is where read and listen can relate to each other. And third, discuss. Discuss is an activity that is carried by more than one person. This activity is usually carried to solve a problem, such as answering questions in a group or even arguing in solving a question. And the last is reading comprehension. Reading comprehension is an acquisition of knowledge obtained by students through reading. For example, when students are asked to read a text, and in the text there are some questions. Students can answer questions if students have read the text. If students do not read the text and the student do not get an understanding of the text and also cannot answer existing questions. And next is participant of the study. This research will be conducted at SMP Negeri 2 Banyuasin 3, and the participants who will be researchers and research are the 8th grade students of SMP Negeri 2 Banyuasin 3. And researchers select and use purposive sampling method. Purposive sampling method is a type of non-probability technique whose sampling is based on criteria that have been formulated by previous researchers. There are several opinions of experts regarding purposive sampling. The first is, according to Sugiono 2015, purposive sampling is a technique that determines the sample with various considerations. And then, according to Arikunso 2006, explained that purposive sampling is a type of sampling technique that is not based on random strata or even region. And the last is, according to Nusrat Mojo 2010, he argues that purposive sampling is sampling based on certain consideration. The purpose of using purposive sampling is to determine the sample of a research that has been conducted. This technique requires certain criteria so that the sample taken is in accordance with the objective of this study. Purposive sampling is usually widely used for qualitative type of research. And then about data collection. In this study, using data collection techniques through filling out questionnaires by students of SMP Negeri 2 Banyuasin 3, consisting of 20 questions or statements. and they will answer according to their abilities regarding this question or statement. And then SS or strongly agree in Indonesia sangat setuju, and S for agree in Indonesia setuju, and neutral. And then TS disagree in Indonesia tidak setuju, and STS strongly disagree in Indonesia sangat tidak setuju. According to Giono 2013, a questionnaire is one of techniques in collecting data when carrying out of study, which can be done by giving general question or written statement to respondents for them to answer. This is useful for knowing how much the respondent agree or disagree with the question and statement. To find out more in-depth results, the researcher will distribute questionnaires to 30 students. And then about data analysis. To analyze the effectiveness of teaching reading through listen, read, discuss, short reading comprehension at the 8th grade students of SMP Negeri 2 Banyuasin 3, researchers use questionnaire to collect data. This data will be analyzed through thematic analysis. According to Al-Hojoilan 2012, stage that thematic analysis is considered the most appropriate with several studies that attempt to detect using interpretation. The point is, the researcher collects the data, then the researcher uses thematic analysis, because thematic analysis is the most appropriate in this study. And the last is trustworthiness. In the process of collecting data, the accuracy of the finding and interpretation must be completely guaranteed and in accordance with the data provided by the student of 8th grade SMP Negeri 2 Banyuasin 3 who were respondent in filling out the questionnaire. In order to support this research clearly and accurately and reliably in validating the data. In this study, trustworthiness was used to validate data by applying member checks. According to Lincoln and Gubat, 1985, member checks is one way to increase accuracy in qualitative research to ensure that the findings are credible. Meanwhile, according to Creswell, member checks is a process of checking the accuracy of the finding by asking one or more study participants to check the accuracy of the account. By bringing the findings back to the participant and asking about the accuracy of the finding. And the last is, according to Morse 2002, member checks is also known as participant verification, informed feedback, respondent validation, application, external validity, and suitability. This examination involves taking the finding back to the participant and asking them about the accuracy of the reports in checking the accuracy of the result from filling out the questionnaire. Okay, I think that's all with my explanation. I'm so sorry for my mistake. And last, I say wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.